Ladies and gentlemen, I have with me to start with Xavier Rodriguez. You all know him as the editor in chief of the Goa Chronicles, but I know him as a person who has deep understanding of intelligence, excellent understanding of intelligence. Sometimes I think he's an agent himself. He knows so much about it. And General Pradeep Nair is with us tonight, former Director General of the Assam Rifles, joining us from Hyderabad. Sierra Claire is there. She's joining us from Los Angeles. She's a foreign policy expert, has joined us in some of our recent debates. This is an unusual subject. What's happened is Sierra, that there is this man, his name is Matthew Van Dyke. He's made a film called Point and Shoot. And he's a sort of a private military contractor who is with the CIA, joined the CIA in 2004, then claims that he's a tourist, sometimes goes driving around on motorcycles. Sometimes he says he's a journalist, but basically he's there pushing war on behalf of America. So he has been in Iran, he has been in Afghanistan, he's been in Syria, and now he is in India. And every time he gets arrested, and then he makes a show and dance of it, and then the CIA and the American government gets him out, right, Savio? Usually, the
Absolutely.
CIA puts pressure through their embassies and everyone else, and then usually he goes out. And now he's in India, but India is a big country, Sierra. India is a powerful country. We don't do what we just caught this man. You'll put him in lockup. He's in a jail in Kolkata right now, and the Americans are putting pressure, saying, "Please release him. Please release him." Why do you think a person like this was here in India on the Myanmar border? What is the intention that a person like him could be having? Surely
Surely
not
not
tourism.
tourism.
Well, as you said, not tourism. What I'm seeing from Matthew Van Dyke, you mentioned, that he might be a Trump person. He, on his X, he's actually been very against a lot of Trump's policies. And what you had in during the Biden years, when this whole Ukraine thing kind of took off, was just an absolute frenzy among some elements of different groups in America about supporting Ukraine. And people did go up and actually join the Ukraine army and start fighting for Ukraine. And so that whole thing has is not something that's sanctioned by the US government at all, but it certainly was whipped into a frenzy, I would say, by the Biden administration. So in terms of what this guy is doing and who he represents, I think it's probably goes back to what was going on when this whole Ukraine war thing started. And if he's in Myanmar and if he's in all of these other places, um, there are as you said, there are conflicts in all of these other places that he's been in. And clearly he's somebody who likes a fight. He's somebody who likes the to be in the center of things. And so that's not something that the American government can stop him from going and doing. And as you said, they've tried to get him out in the past, and we do try to take care of our citizens, and make sure they're being treated fairly and humanitarian and all of that. So I would imagine that that was the
Clearly he has
concern.
some. Clearly he knows a lot because the Americans are getting desperate to get him released, and the Ukrainian embassy gave out a press release and they said that, look here, people want to spoil the good relationship between India and Ukraine. We have nothing to do with it. It is the Russian intelligence agencies who gave information about Matthew Van Dyke. Um, and the Russians are very bad people. They want to spoil the relationship between Ukraine and India. And they wanted to use this case of Matthew Van Dyke to discredit Ukraine and introduce distrust in Ukraine-India relations. Now, my question is, Tatiana, even if assume the information came from the Russian intelligence agencies, suppose we assume that the information came through the Russian intelligence agencies to India's RAW, to our intelligence bureau, because obviously intelligence agencies talk. Even so, Tatiana, what is a high profile American mercenary military leader doing in India's northeast with a bunch of Ukrainians, supplying drones, arms, ammunition, and trying to cross over the Myanmar border, come back, and then go back for more? The Ukrainians say that the Russians plotted to get the Ukrainians arrested in India's northeast. I'm surprised that these people I thought fight in Ukraine, they fight in Iran, Iraq, and not in India. They wouldn't be in India for fun or tourism, would they, Tatiana? They have a purpose, that means, in India's northeast.
Of course they are. No, this might be a historic moment, Arnab, because I will agree with Miss Sierra Claire on one very specific thing. Just one, and that might be the first and the last time we actually agree on something, that the destabilization through similar agents, and you've seen, everything that we've read about Mr. Van Dijk, everything we know about his parkour, so to speak, that is much, much more consistent with the policies of the democratic administrations of the US than with Trump's policy. Because we've seen numerous people like that emerge in Ukraine in 2014, especially people who had been, educated in the US, and then they magically appear, in Kiev, starting NGOs, starting some sort of, businesses. One of those people, you actually love to bring him on the show opposite me. He's called Peter, who I'm talking about. So we've seen those people, and unfortunately, that is that has the U.S. administration written all over it. And I wouldn't assume to be, as bold as to educate you in terms of, you and everybody who is on this debate from India on how that specific part of India and the neighboring country might be used to provide some sort of destabilization. And if we're talking specifically about Ukrainians, I don't believe that there is any way to discredit Ukraine through the fact that Ukrainians are involved. I mean, if you look at the number of Ukrainians living in Europe right now, or the number of Ukrainians who went to the Middle East, to Dubai, who went to Israel, oh my God, there's so many of them. Mercenaries are mercenaries. I don't believe that this could in any way, shape, or form be interpreted as a plot, a devious, terrible plot to discredit Ukraine as a state, because we understand that those peoples are mercenaries.
Bishambar Dayal and Savio Rodriguez is joining us here. We all know that America wants a hand in Myanmar. We all know this. And America will be supporting quote unquote rebel groups in Myanmar, parts of Myanmar which are bordering India. So America has a problem. America's problem is it can't mind its own business. It wants to go everywhere, Savio. Now they want to go to Myanmar. They're thinking, how do we sandwich ourselves between India and China? Let's go to Bangladesh. Let's go to Myanmar. Let's get an island here. Let's get a military base here. Let's keep a watch. Let's put our radar facilities. Let's poke our nose. And then when India hits back, they will cry like the Iranians are crying right now. Iranians are making them cry. But this is getting serious. Today across India, General Dayal, people are asking CIA, Matthew Van Dijk, US State Department, press release from Ukraine. Who the hell is this man? Matthew Van Dijk, that the whole American establishment is getting excited about getting him out. What should we do, General Dayal?
See, Arnab, thank you for calling me for this. And I'm somewhere en route on a highway. Arnab, let's be very clear that our north is very, very delicate and sensitive area. And if you remember, for 40, 45 years, we have lost a lot of blood there to stabilize our northeast, which is a pain in America and the other agencies. Number of other agencies, have tried to exploit northeast because of its sensitivity. And also the area is very, very geostrategic, actually. You have explained it. It affects Myanmar, it can affect China also, it affects Bangladesh, and it can affect our own internal stability in that region.
Yes.
So, and CIA is nobody's friend. CIA has been active. I've been saying from last 2 years since this problem started that there is a foreign national hand. and thank God you dug it out, and hats off to you for reporting this, that this is a foreign hand, exactly a foreign hand. And these are not mercenaries, simple. These are hardcore intelligent agents who,
Yes.
in our term, can be mistaken for mercenary. They're hardcore intelligence people who have come here with a specific agenda of firstly subverting our own population there and then taking their operation across to Myanmar. So these are hardcore, and what we should be doing is we should not bother for any telephone calls. We should not bother. Law of the land must take its course, and law of the land says that these people have been caught, they have been apprehended, trying to instigate instability in our northeast, trying to instigate strife between the communities there, trying to destabilize India. We should not bother what was their future plan.
No, this is the time. America is weak. We should hit them back. No, no, no. This is the time, General Dayal. America is weak. This man, without doubt, is an American quasi-military agent. Peter Koznick, please welcome. I'm also getting here General Pradeep Dayal, former director, Assam Rifles. He knows the region very well, sir. Now we have a situation, General, where we have a trained American mercenary who is training others in the Myanmar area. But he's also coming in through the Indian land route, getting allegedly drones technology with him, supplying and providing in-house training in Myanmar. It was on his way back when he was caught. From your information, sir, what is the American interest here? What is the American interest in the Mizoram, Manipur area of India's northeast?
Thank you for having me here. Before coming to the American interest, let me take the minds of your viewers back to what the present Chief Minister of Mizoram, Sri Ralduama, mentioned in the State Assembly last year, March 2025. He very clearly spoke that the number of foreigners, tourists, who have come to Mizoram in the period between June to December 2024 have increased exponentially, and those figures were around 2,000. For a state like Mizoram, you just have about 10 to 11,000 tourists coming annually. So 2,000 foreigners rang some alarm bells. He then said a few other things, that most of these people are either Americans, some are also Brits. And he went a step further by saying there are also a large number of veterans from the Ukraine war who are coming.
Okay.
And these people are going across into Myanmar and supplying arms, supplying drones. And there is a connect probably with the drug mafia also that is there. And he also brought in context the geopolitical or the geographic location of Mizoram. So these are issues which are highlighted. Probably much of our national media didn't pick this up, but whatever he brought out then, they're all now here very visible for us to see. So it should not be surprising. In terms
why
of
have we allowed it? Why have we allowed? Question would go, Savio. Why have we allowed Ukrainian military veterans to come to India's northeast, disguising themselves as tourists? Have we been too liberal with them? Savio.
So, Arnab, let me put the entire situation in a perspective, having tracked a lot of the US deep state interest in India and the neighboring countries. But let me not use the words of the research that we have done. Let's go back to what Sheikh Hasina said 6 months prior to her ouster, where she categorically, at a meeting of her party workers, stated that a white man told her that they want to carve out a Christian nation out of parts of a Christian nation out of parts of Myanmar, parts of Bangladesh, and parts of India, which are predominantly Manipur and Mizoram. Now, this is something that was very alarming when Sheikh Hasina spoke about it. And the mere fact that she spoke about it also was a trigger to her ouster from Bangladesh. And we all know the history around that and what happened post that. But the interesting aspect is what you must understand, that the US CIA and the deep state that works along with the CIA is interested in having a Christian nation along with a base of the US in this region, because you've got a Hindu nation, which is India predominantly, and you have Islamic nations on either side. And that is the reason why They want a Christian nation here to have a control on India, to have a control on the Islamic nations around here, and to have a bird's eye view of what's happening in China. So the conflict in Manipur that you did see, and we are finally seeing some sort of resolution to that conflict, was triggered by a very large plan which had the front of narcotics, which is estimated at 70,000 crore from Manipur itself, that then got into what many wanted to turn it into a religious conflict, which was to make the Maitis and the Cookies fight with each other and to make it look like a Hindu Christian fight, thereby giving an opportunities for people like Daniel Kearney and Matthew Van Dyke and likes of them to come into the Northeast and say, see, the Christians are in danger. Therefore, you need to go out and form your own nation of your own. That was the second strategy that they deployed in the Manipur conflict. What is U.S. deep state wanting? The U.S. deep state primarily is looking at destabilizing the growth prospects of India in the Northeast, because the government, the Narendra Modi government, over a large period of time, the Northeast has been neglected, but the Narendra Modi government has been putting a lot of investment to ensure that the Northeast connects with other Asian countries, thereby improving economic stability and trade for people within the Northeast. And that is something that the Americans don't want, because as long as the people of the Northeast continue to remain poor and economically weak, the easier it is to influence them. It's easier for the missionaries that are coming into the Northeast to convert them with the hopes of jobs, with the hopes of economic benefit. And that is the larger goal. Why would the US want a Christian nation in India, out of parts of Myanmar, Bangladesh, and India? It is a long-term game plan of the deep state, Arnab, and
I don't think the Americans are interested in spreading Christianity. But yes, this idea of carving out a Christian nation with parts of Myanmar, parts of Northeast India, and parts of Bangladesh has been on. I personally had conversation with Sheikh Hasina's ministers. Many of them have told me directly that this is an American plan, and that is exactly what happened when the Americans bankrolled Bill Clinton's friend Yunus to be part-time quasi-president for a short time till he's been thrown out again. The point is Myanmar. And on that, I go to Peter Kuznick. There's an interesting story with a lot of dimensions in India, Peter Kuznick, but there's a lot of geopolitics that is opening up. In fact, it's a subject of a whole, research perhaps. You have one man arrested, but it's in the backdrop of American interest in Myanmar. America is very unhappy that the military junta, part supported by China, is running Myanmar. The Americans don't have a game or a presence in South Asia, Southeast Asia. The Americans always like to wedge themselves in where they can have some play. China has influence in Myanmar. India is increasing influence in Myanmar. In fact, Joe Biden had said when he was president, this goes beyond Trump, I want to impose sanctions on Myanmar because Aung San Suu Kyi is no longer the chief. And America must decide who heads every country. Now, this
Myanmar situation gets very little attention in the United States. Even the Van Dyke arrest there has gotten almost no attention in the United States. So I've got to read my Indian sources to find out about it. Among the places where this guy's operated, you mentioned several of them, he's also apparently been in Venezuela.
Yeah, Venezuela.
So I mean, we're talking about somebody who managed to insert himself in one hotspot after another. Also, the reports I read say that at Georgetown or after Georgetown, he tried to join the CIA, but he failed his lie detector test. I don't know if that's true or not. That's just a cover story. Whether he's just a mercenary or he's a direct U.S. operative, he clearly shows up.
See, let me place this. You know the system. Georgetown is quasi-Ivy League, isn't it? Really top-notch for security studies and international relations. So he's not a loose cannon, Peter. He's done a master's degree from Georgetown in security studies. has deep connections in the American establishment. The entire American government goes and saves him wherever he is, Myanmar, Iran, Venezuela, Afghanistan. So this is an extraordinary story. But now the problem is, Peter, the man got stuck not in Sri Lanka or in a smaller country. The man has been arrested by India. And the Indians have filed a case of terrorism on him. And the Americans are calling the Indians, get him out. I don't see any way this man can go out without spending a dozen years in India and maybe more.
Well, the world would be better off if that's true.
Absolutely.
And you put it together with the Ukrainians. Ukrainians are operating around the world now too. Some of them as mercenaries, but they're, this idea that they were training these rebel groups in Myanmar in using drones and jamming technology.
Yeah.
Well, it's the Ukrainians who are all over Southwest Asia now with their drone expertise. So, there's a lot of...
So the fighting, so Myanmar becomes the next hotspot. With the Myanmarese junta chief has met Vladimir Putin in Moscow. They had a lot of talks. Russia is improving its relations there. In fact, 40% increase in Russia-Myanmar links, right? And China is also increasing its activity with the government in Myanmar. India, of course, being in the region, is keeping a relationship going with all sides. But what was the intention here, Savio? What do these people do? These Ukrainians, some man called Pedro Hurba, Taras Slivak, Ivan Sukmanovsky, Marian Stefankiv, Maxim Honcharuk, Viktor Kaminsky, all these people with a lot of drones caught in India's northeast. This is bizarre.
No, the Ukrainians, if you even go into African countries like Mali, you're looking at Burkina Faso, and you're looking at Niger as well. Even there, the Ukrainians were very active in working with terror groups out there. And therefore, you have to understand what I'm trying to say. This entire conflict that you're seeing at this point of time is a US deep state intent to bring those people, even the Ukrainian groups that are working, into the Northeast because they want to carve out a Christian nation. That is something we have to really take really serious. They want a Christian nation. You might not think that the US or the deep state are interested in Christianity. They are not interested in the religion. But religion allows you to control the masses, and that's exactly what they want to do. And
so what he did was very interesting. What he did was Matthew Van Dyke starts a non-profit. And he calls it Sons of Liberty International, SOLI, SOLI. And then he says, my focus is on helping Assyrian Christian militias against the ISIS in Iraq. So he uses religion, gets the support of the intelligence agencies, and finds a role for himself in Iraq that goes beyond military.
That is
he goes as some kind of a messianic figure to save Christianity in Iraq.
That's what he's doing in the Northeast as well. There are a group of people working for the CIA that come in as pastors. You have to look at somebody like Daniel Kearney. He was doing exactly the same thing. There are a whole group of CIA agents and deep state operatives that bring and use religion as a control mechanism in the Northeast. And that is the worrying factor now, because that is what we need to...
Our sources just contacted someone who worked closely with him. Let me tell you, Sia, what we got. His name is David Akers. Our news desk got in touch with a person called David Akers, who's worked closely with Van Dyke in the past. And he says that I did see that he is detained in India. I worked for SOLI back in 2016, that is Sons of Liberty International, in a town north of Mosul in Iraq, and then says our job was training a local part of the Kurdish military in urban warfare. So he was sent in by the Americans in Iraq to train some people in urban warfare. So he's not funding himself. Sierra, the American government, CIA must be funding him, and they have deep pockets.
Well,
But why India? Why India?
I don't think that
On
the
one
U.S.
side, America says we want strategic partnership, trade relationship. We are best of friends. We want to be best of friends, and then they do this.
I can't say, I personally don't believe that he was CIA. I can't say whether he received government funding. There was a lot of government funding that went we don't know where it went under Biden, especially with regard to Ukraine. But in terms of India, I don't think that the U.S. government policy is to destabilize any part of India. That's not in our interest.
They can't.
Well, and it's not in our interest. So,
no, it's not in your interest for sure, but you can't. We're 10 times bigger than Iran.
Yeah, and the U.S. government. Well, then the U.S. government.
Come on, Sierra. Everything that's going right in the Middle East right now is aimed at just one thing: destabilization. I mean, surely we're past the moment where we can talk about regime change or any other,
I think it's the opposite.
There in the beginning. We need to come on. This is exactly what it was all about. We've been talking about.
I think it's the opposite in the Middle East. I think the United States is trying to bring stability back to the region because there are terror groups that are destabilizing the region, and it's making it very difficult for everybody there. Israel.
Are you saying that Ukraine funded him? Ukraine is behind him? Ukraine wants to play in Myanmar? Aren't they in enough trouble already?
I don't think, I don't know what Ukraine is doing. I mean, I think they should focus on ending their war. And I know that's the Trump administration is very committed to ending that war and working with both sides to do so.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I have no idea what's going on in detail here, but Savio, how is the Indian security establishment going to look at this? This is good for us. Well, we have a lever on America now. Next time they lecture us.
Well, I personally believe that there will be a lot of phone calls that will go, as you rightly mentioned. There will be a lot of powerful people, including political heads as well as business heads, trying to influence that Matthew Van Dyke is released. But I also believe that the Indian government is not going to ensure that Matthew Van Dyke releases, because the Indian government and the Indian intelligence apparatus has been keeping an eye on what's happening in the Northeast. And that is why, with the help of the Russian tip-off, the Indian intelligence was able to track Matthew Van Dyke and even other people, which has not been made public at this point of time. The thing is this. I keep bringing it back to the focus of what the U.S. deep state and the U.S. CIA is working on. They are looking at the Northeast because the Northeast gives them an avenue to control both India, control China, control Pakistan, Afghanistan, and all the regions extending to Russia. Therefore, they need the base. That's the main reason that even Sheikh Hasina had to lose her position, because she went against a white man. And this is a serious intent. But India is not Bangladesh, and Modi is not Sheikh Hasina. So you're going to play a very different game, and they're going to see a very different India when coming to destabilizing the Northeast. Sorry.
Well, this is things are going really crazy. I have a news story that Denmark is preparing for possible attacks from the US. Bags of blood have been flown to Greenland to prepare any attempt to blow up runways. It's crazy times right now, and now Trump is saying, "I want Cuba. I'm going to get Cuba."
I wouldn't be surprised.
And I wouldn't be surprised at all either. But my question is tonight that in this unstable situation, what were the Ukrainians doing here? I'm joined by Peter Dickinson. He's editor of Ukraine Alert, chief editor of Business Ukraine magazine. I'm sure you've seen this news. If you haven't already, I'd be surprised, Peter. 6 Ukrainians, along with a high-profile American mercenary, who have been caught in India's northeast. And Ukraine says that Russia is behind this. How can Russia be behind Ukrainians, mercenaries caught in India's northeast?
Good evening. Thank you for having me. Well, Russia has a long record of using Ukrainians in such operations. We saw, I think, most recently in Poland, where there were a number of attempts to sabotage the Polish railway network to disrupt the delivery of weapons to Ukraine. And the people involved, the people who were identified by the Polish authorities, by the Polish intelligence services, were Ukrainian nationals who'd been hired by the Russians to carry out these tasks. So this is part of a pattern that we've seen by the Russians often and use them not only in
So
Poland.
basically, the Ukrainians are up for sale. That's what you're saying.
Absolutely. To whoever wants
Is
to
that what
pay
you're
for them,
saying? That the
obviously.
Ukrainians go to the highest bidder?
Well, this is a specific example. This is a very specific example. There've been other examples in the Baltic states, in Holland, I believe, and in Germany.
So,
But
so
the
with
Polish
Matthew
example is the most recent and the most high profile.
you saying the Americans paid the Ukrainians to work in Myanmar. So basically, the Ukrainians are guns on hire. So they are either paid by the Americans or the Russians, according to you.
Well, in this instance, yes, they seem to have been hired by the Russians. That would be the obvious conclusion. But you know, I think we have to dig deeper into this. Obviously, this is breaking news at this point. But we should be aware that this is part of Russia's modus operandi. They use. So
what would an American be doing with the Russian? I'm a little confused here with your analysis. The American.
The leader is an American.
Matthew Van Dyke is an American.
See,
the leader of the group is an American. He's been supported by the U.S. Military.
You see, now, let me just say one thing out here. You see, what happens is, Peter, it's going a bit too far. You know, Venezuela, okay, Iran, you're having a tough time, right? Americans. Now they want Cuba. Now they want Greenland. Okay, but now you say now we'll target India. Next, you'll say we'll send mercenaries to China. That's where that's where we'll get into trouble. See, Diki, India, China is going to be a different level of response.
Well, I don't think we should read too much into the presence of an American mercenary in this situation.
He's not an American.
No.
Please see, there's a film made on this guy. Diki, Peter, there's a film made on this guy.
Why not? He's a deep state agent.
He's a major, big deep state agent.
And why should India not be concerned about it?
If the Americans had serious plans,
if the Americans had serious,
sending a single guy, and he would certainly not be operating with a bunch
single
of
guy to single guys to run an arms running operation, an arms training operation, and they were supplying drones and training in the use of drones.
We must not be naive here and read too much into these individual
I think
cases.
you are being naive, my friend.
Okay, viewers, I think this is going to get complicated. This is going to get complicated.
To think that any self-respecting Ukrainian would associate with the Russian government is the definition of naive at this point. This is so ridiculous. There are no words to describe this as far as complotist terrorists go.
Peter, we'll be in touch with you for more details from Ukraine. But as of now, I think the news is only beginning to go out of India to Ukraine, to Russia, to US, and it's getting noticed. It's probably one of the biggest whodunits in a long time. I thank you, gentlemen, for joining me at short notice today on what is an incredibly